We've all got our quirks, right? What happens when the quirks are big enough that they interfere with life? Step right up and behold the fascinating world of personality disorders. Let's go. Paranoid personality disorder. People afflicted with this disorder tend to believe that there is always someone who wants to harm them, or in some way is out to get them. They are real conspiracy connoisseurs. It can be like living in a real-life thriller movie. Forget about trust because everyone is suspect. The mailman, definitely a government spy. That squirrel in the park, secretly recording your every move. It's life, but constantly on high alert. So people with this disorder tend not to trust others, which even includes their romantic partners. Can you see how it could be hard to have a lasting relationship with someone who is convinced you are cheating on them? People with this disorder also tend to never fully trust loyalty, even people they consider friends. They fear confiding in others due to the fear that any personal information they share will be used against them somehow, no matter how innocuous it may be. People with PPD also tend to take innocent remarks as personal attacks or insults. As a result, people with this disorder can become quick to anger at perceived insults and tend to hold long grudges. They can come off as cold or distant, especially when meeting new people for the first time. Think of it like branches on a tree. Personality disorders are categorized in clusters. Paranoid personality falls under the A cluster, which are described as odd, eccentric in their beliefs and behavior. Schizoid personality disorder. Another member of the A team is schizoid personality disorder. These folks exist mainly in a world of their own creation. They are the masters of solitude. It's like having an internal party with zero guests. Social interactions? Not their thing. Specifically, they tend to be introverted daydreamers. Because of this, they tend to come off as cold and distant or aloof. They have trouble expressing emotions or picking up on social cues. So much so that people with SPD tend to not seek out sexual relationships. Instead, they prefer their own company and will even seek jobs that allow them to work mostly alone. Their tendency to be indifferent towards accepting praise or criticism results in the inability to form strong bonds with family members or to make friends. Though they do desire these things, they just have a fear of them. It's estimated that as many as 5 in 100 people could be afflicted with SPD. It is speculated that Sigmund Freud and Albert Einstein had symptoms of schizoid personality disorder. Schizotypal personality disorder. Schizotypal personality disorder is also in the A cluster group. It tends to make those who suffer from it seem aloof or cold. This is largely due to their fear of social interactions or intimacy and lack of trust in others to the point of being paranoid. So as a kind of defense mechanism, they remain loners with very few friends. People with schizotypal personality disorder exhibit unusual thoughts and beliefs, such as believing they might be psychic. They also tend to act, dress, or speak in a way that might be considered odd or unusual. They retreat to their own fantasies and daydreams. Think of Johnny Depp's version of Willy Wonka and Tim Burton's version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or even Kramer from Seinfeld. While schizotypal personality disorder is different from schizophrenia, as you can guess by the name, the two aren't that far apart. As a result, people with schizotypal personality disorder may develop full-blown schizophrenia in their lifetimes. The main difference is that people with schizophrenia are completely disconnected from reality, while people with schizotypal personality disorder aren't. Borderline personality disorder. If Forrest Gump was talking about borderline personality disorder, he'd say it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. With mood swings that would make a yo-yo jealous and intense emotions that could power a roller coaster, it's a wild ride. BPD falls under the B cluster of personality disorders, which are best described as dramatic and erratic. People with BPD can form bonds and develop very deep relationships. However, they tend to strongly fear being abandoned or alone. They also tend to suffer from stress-related paranoia and feelings of emptiness, combined with low self-esteem. As a result, their relationships can be volatile at best. People who suffer from BPD are more likely to threaten self-harm when stressed, such as if their romantic partner attempts to end things. They may even make good on that promise. On top of that, they are prone to very impulsive and risky behavior. It's the real drama queen of personalities, constantly craving attention and all over the map with emotions. So one moment they might be binge eating 10 pizzas, and the next convinced that you are planning their demise. If you have BPD, embrace your quirks. You bring a unique flavor to life's buffet. Histrionic personality disorder. Next, we have histrionic personality disorder. People who suffer from this typically tend to be the center of attention. This is because how they view themselves is directly tied to how others view them. If all the world's a stage, then people with HPD intend to be the star. As a result, they mastered the art of overacting, turning even the simplest conversations into dramatic monologues worthy of an Oscar. Forget about subtlety. HPD takes center stage and demands applause for every performance. More common in women than in men, they are lively, dramatic, and flirtatious. Their relationships with others may be strained because of their own perception of them, in that people with histrionic personality disorder may think a casual acquaintance sees them as their best friend. However, because of their constant need for attention, people with this disorder tend to be gullible and easily influenced by others. Plagued by self-esteem problems, they can constantly desire positive feedback and reassurance while also being very sensitive to any criticism or disapproval they may face. Their emotions can shift rapidly. Another focus of HPD is their appearance. As part of their desire to be the center of attention, a great deal of effort is put into their personal appearance. It's possible that Marilyn Monroe and Britney Spears have traits of HPD, though neither were formally diagnosed. You guessed it, this is a B cluster that is full of drama, and it comes across to others as erratic. Narcissistic personality disorder. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who thinks they are the best of all? You can probably think of a few people right away when you hear narcissistic personality disorder. Have you met my ex? I digress. People with this disorder tend to think that they are better than everyone in every possible way. Narcissists believe that everyone is jealous of them for being so awesome, while simultaneously feeling a sense of undeserved entitlement. Their favorite hobby? Giving themselves high fives for existing. Their darkest secret? At the core, they are actually very insecure and feel secretly worthless. Most people meet their public charming face and never see their real insecure self. They aren't afraid of telling a few or a lot of lies to build themselves up further. It's important to mention that people with narcissistic personality disorder lack empathy and have no issues with using others for their needs. They tend to be self-absorbed, controlling, selfish, and insensitive. Narcissists are also prone to jealousy of anyone legitimately doing better than them. Instant rivals. If a person with NPD feels like someone is belittling them or not treating them with the reverence they crave, explosive and destructive anger may result. People with NPD have also been known to seek revenge against anyone who wrongs them, even if the slight was minor or imagined. But hey, at least they know they're awesome, right? Antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial personality disorder is probably one of the most misunderstood personality disorders. People tend to think of antisocial to mean that people with APD are loners, but it's more than that. People who suffer from APD don't care at all about the feelings or the needs of others. As a result, they tend to have zero issues lying, stealing, using false names, or conning people to get what they want. They also tend to be aggressive to the point of being violent and have zero concern for the safety of others. On top of all of that, they can be both reckless and impulsive, and, not surprisingly, well known to law enforcement. Despite the antisocial part of the name, people with ASD can and do easily find themselves in relationships. However, more often than not, these relationships are fiery, potentially violent, and short-lived. It's estimated that between 2 and 4% of the population are antisocial, and it's most commonly found in men. For an example of this in pop culture, think of guys like Gordon Gekko from the movie Wall Street, or Denzel Washington's character of Alonzo Harris in the spectacular movie Training Day. Avoidant personality disorder. Next, we come to avoidant personality disorder, which is in the C cluster of personality disorders. The C cluster is best described as anxious and inhibited. It's estimated that about 2.1% of Americans have this disorder. People with this disorder are masters of disappearing acts and avoiding any potential social interaction. Those who have APD tend to have very low self-esteem and a deep fear of rejection. They basically constantly feel less than. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. Consequently, they tend to cut themselves off from social interactions and events to prevent themselves from feeling rejected. For example, I can't lose if I don't play. Combined with these built-in self-esteem issues, people with APD also really fear disapproval, rejection, or being made fun of. Due to this, when they are in social situations, they are rarely present at the moment. That is because they are too concerned with what those around them think about them. So cheers to the original hide-and-seek champions, because they can avoid social situations like it's their full-time job. Dependent personality disorder. People with dependent personality disorder tend to need a lot of help in their daily lives. They have mastered the art of being attached at the hip, making Velcro look like an amateur. As the name of the disorder suggests, they are very much dependent on others to the point that they can be considered clingy. They are almost always in a relationship, but this is largely due to lacking confidence in themselves and their abilities. They feel like they can't take care of themselves or even make the most basic decisions without validation and guidance from others. Due to their own lack of confidence, people with DPD tend to be very submissive and find it hard to even disagree with others in the event the other person disapproves or rejects them. As you can probably imagine, dependent personality disorder tends to make people put up with abusive situations and being treated poorly. This is because they are so afraid of being left alone and having to care for themselves that they would rather be with someone who treats them horribly but takes care of them. An example is the character Buster from Arrested Development. According to reports, DPD is one of the most commonly diagnosed mental disorders. As you might have guessed, persons with this personality disorder are ripe for abuse by a narcissist. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. People with obsessive-compulsive personality disorder tend to be considered perfectionists and control freaks. This is because their condition makes them feel very anxious when they are not in control of situations. To that end, they tend to be very rigid and thrive on structure. If they start a project, they are obsessed with perfection, to the point that they won't finish something if perfection doesn't seem possible. Because of this, people with OCPD may tend to overwhelm themselves with work because they can't delegate tasks to others, fearing things won't live up to their standards unless they do it themselves. This can include obsessive thoughts and obsessions that lead to repetitive behaviors called compulsions. As a result, personal relationships, or even relaxation, fall by the wayside because they're too focused on ensuring everything is in its rightful place. They also tend to focus on details and rules and ensure everything runs orderly. If the rigid routine of someone with OCPD is randomly disrupted, it can easily throw off their whole day. In more extreme versions, sufferers perform rituals to make sure nothing bad happens. Imagine needing to flip a light switch an exact number of times, counting all of your steps, or repeatedly checking if the oven is off to prevent something bad from happening. I mean, it won't, but can you be sure? If a person engages in a compulsion to ease their anxiety, such as counting the floor tiles, and are unable to finish, they will repeat it until they are satisfied that it was done right. It sounds exhausting. Steve Jobs is an example of someone with OCPD, as he oversaw every single design step of the Mac, the iPhone, and the iPod. But like Seal once sang, no, we are never going to survive unless we are a little crazy. Friendly reminder, don't diagnose yourself. If something here caught your attention, take the time and work with a mental health professional.